for a start, the thing that really frustrates me is they just call it data strategy. And I have to go, no, it's a data migration strategy. And they're like, oh, same thing. No, it's not. It's definitely not. And I think what we're going to do today is you have to invest in a data strategy, and people don't always see the benefits or see the return or the investment return. So they're very nervous about doing it. But I think in the modern day, the ownership starts at the top. Yeah. So, all you CFOs out there, HR directors, IT directors, that's with you. That is, your responsibility. If anything happens, in a negative way, breaches, things like that with data in your businesses, it will come back to you. Hi there. Welcome to the Binary 10 podcast. My name's James Blake. I'm the CEO of Binary 10.
And my name's Steve Smales, and I am the Chief Operating Officer.
Hey, Steve. How are we doing?
Hi, Jamie. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Yeah, looking forward to this one. We're going to get technical today, back to our roots.
What's this then?
So, data migration strategy versus data strategy.
Yeah.
Are they the same thing?
Certainly not.
Certainly not. But it's amazing how we see the waters being muddied, when we speak with our clients and when we deliver primarily data migration strategies and data migrations, how there is an assumption, or for a start, the thing that really frustrates me is they just call it data strategy. And I have to go, no, it's a data migration strategy. And they're like, oh, same thing. No, it's not. It's definitely not. And I think what we're going to do today is try and explore both those areas, show where there are differences, what they mean, but also where they do cross over, because, they do share some similarities as well. So Steve, data migration strategy, what are those sort of key elements of it that are very specific to it and not data strategy purely?
Yeah, so I suppose your data strategy is a bit more generic, isn't it? A bit more sort of wider ranging, but with a data migration strategy, you're focused solely on doing that ETL, that sort of the shifting of data from your legacy systems or spreadsheets or documents, wherever it is, transforming it, get it into your new system, making sure it's reconciled, doing some data quality analysis, data cleansing, data enrichment. But before you do all of that, you need a strategy in place. How are you going to do it? And you need to plan it out, not just plan the timelines, you need to plan the resourcing and the methodology as well. How are you actually physically going to transform or get the data, the extracts? How are you going to transform it? How are you going to load it? All of that forms your strategy. And that sort of length of time where you're doing that ETL, how many times are you going to do it? You want a repeatable process. You can't just do it once and then put it live. So you need to do this, time and time again and refine it until you're sort of comfortable that the process you've got in place actually works and you're ready to load it into your target system. So that's essentially your data migration strategy. I mean, would you add anything to that?
No, I spot on. I think it's, the other way you can look at it as well is just that sort of time-boxed event. A DM strategy is normally related to a project or a program, where it's a very targeted system or entity that you're trying to move data from A to B. If we then come on to data strategy, so this is something that a business should operate all the time and keep up to date regularly, and it should cover all data that your business operates. But to sort of help simplify it slightly, it's a way of governing your data and managing it, or almost keeping it well oiled. And a nice way I like to think about it and how you can bring the two together. Data migration is a great opportunity to clean your data, make it better. Obviously, you've got to move it into your new system, new processes. So at that point, you've already improved and massively increased the value of your data. So think of it as that data strategy can then take that forward. It can keep that value and finesse it and add to it. But it can only do that if you've got a good strategy in place and that you actually, you resource up and you invest in, whether it's tools, people, technology, to ensure that data remains consistent, accurate, because then people will continue to trust it and it'll add value to your business. But as I said, it's amazing how we've done some projects and people will contact us maybe just after and say, oh, some of the data has changed and it's not doing as, and you say, oh, well, how are you addressing that through your data strategy? Oh, we don't have a data strategy. Yeah. And it's a difficult one because people, you have to invest in a data strategy and people don't always see the benefits or see the return or the investment return. So they're very nervous about doing it. But I think in the modern day, GDPR, DPA 2018, the regulation around data and keeping it secure and safe, it's essential nowadays. Businesses really need to start thinking about this. And actually, so we promote it. When we do our data migrations, we say to our clients, look, just be aware that this is what the data migration will deliver you. Fantastic. It will move your data onto this new system. But it's not going to keep it fantastic. It's not going to, ensure it's well managed, well maintained. You have to put a strategy around that and empower the people within your organization to take up that responsibility, to own data, and to ensure that it keeps consistent and that it keeps accurate. You have to work at it to make the value come out.
Yeah, and it's a good point what you're saying there, because we do come across it a lot with clients where, as part of the data migration strategy in the project, you have to spend a lot of time cleansing the data, enriching the data to get it into a good state to go live on the new system. But then as soon as they go live on the new system, the old habits start coming in and the data starts sort of, being entered badly in the wrong place, or things start getting missed that really should be entered. And it's almost like you've gone through that whole effort to get to a really good point, and then you start letting it slip again. And interestingly, we've actually got a tool that we use for data quality analysis, for the actual data migration part, the binary view, which you can probably talk a little bit more about. But it's interesting because what we can do is actually tailor that to work not just during the data migration project, but after the project, after go live, we can actually point that same tool to your target system, and then you can actually see the data quality analysis real time going forwards.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that, because, let's be honest, it's the insight, isn't it? And, people walking around the office, people just doing their day-to-day lives, they're not seeing the data be bad or add inefficiencies. I mean, it might be seen at some level, or, people just cover over it and get their process done. But it's imperative for delivering data migration. So our tool is fantastic in that we define certain checks we want to do on data, like POs that are really old and out of date and should be closed out. And, there's lots of different checks we can do on individuals' data and making sure they don't have missing data. But just as you said, Steve, why then not continue that on? Because you spend all that effort, monitoring that and doing it. And it's amazing how you share, the dashboards and the reports, and your senior management, your data owners in the business say, oh my God, have we really got that bad data? Right, let's fix it. But then you go live and people just carry on being,
it's just bad habits.
Habits. Don't need to keep looking at that.
And like you say, no insight. People just aren't aware, the sort of senior management aren't aware that these issues are happening.
Yeah, and I tell you what, don't quote me on this, but I think, in the future, you think of like standards, in your ISO 9001s and all your different sort of standard bodies. But it'll be the same for data. I think organizations will have to prove a level of data quality.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's we're just talking one area of data strategy here, but, we would absolutely implore businesses to really consider this. Have reports that check your data on a regular basis and let them, issue them to you, or only issue them to you if it sees discrepancy or it falls beneath the threshold, because then you're actively governing your data, you're actively managing it, and you're reacting if things go wrong or if things go bad. So, I think, and that's probably, coming back to what we talked about earlier, that is an area where data quality is where data strategy, data migration, they both have the same interest. It's certainly super important. I mean, I think one other area to expand on data governance is like the people ownership and everything. So data governance is, if anyone ever looks up something called the Dharma Wheel, which is like been provided by this international institution. If you look at that, it talks about all the different areas of data that you need to manage. But in the heart of that wheel is data governance, because all these different areas, data management, data security, data storage, whatever it might be, they all need to be governed. They all need responsible people that, as part of their duties, are actively managing that world. And I think that's really important for an organization to kind of drive, and empower those people to make them realize they've got a responsibility about data.
Exactly. And if you don't actually sort of put names against responsibilities, then nothing's going to happen. And you'll just end up in a few years' time with your data in your new system in just as bad a quality as your old system was that you always used to moan about before you swapped over and said, oh, I'm glad we're going to a new system because we can sort out the data and have a nice clean start and everything's going to be great. But without those responsibilities for keeping that data in a good shape sort of nailed down, it will start slipping, and it will start slipping from the first week.
Absolutely. And I think, like with anything, the ownership starts at the top. So, all you CFOs out there, HR directors, IT directors, that's with you. that is, your responsibility. If anything happens, in a negative way, breaches, things like that with data in your businesses, it will come back to you. And now that doesn't mean that you've got to spend all your time, fixing data and all the rest of it, but absolutely think about or make sure that you're confident that your teams, you've got the right roles in place, that people understand their responsibilities around data to give you that assurance you need, so that you're confident the data is not only adding value to your business and giving you information that you can trust, but actually that your data is regulatory and it's legislative and it meets all the criteria put forward by this country. It's so important, and I think that we're just at the start of this. Give it another 5-10 years. It's going to start getting controlled even more than just risk assessed, which it is at the minute.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that just a closing point really is this: if you're going to invest so much money in a new system, so much money, so much money on the data migration part of that and the effort of your own people to do all the cleansing and enrichment, why wouldn't you just invest a small amount of money afterwards to make sure that process carries on, that data quality process is sort of carried on in a new system in perpetuity? Indeed.
Could not have said it better myself. Well, hopefully that's been of use. I really like talking about that subject because it's really important, and hopefully people have sort of got an understanding there of the difference between those two strategies, but how equally important they are and for different purposes. So, no, really good one that, but I'll see you next time, Steve.
See you next time. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining our podcasts.
If you want to see more, please like and subscribe.